What's up, brothers and sisters? It's your brother G World 7_D. Here's a book, The American Discovery of Europe by Jack D. Force. We're gonna go to chapter 7. All right, chapter 7. We're into chapter 7. Right here, Native Americans, basically just say Aboriginals, crossing the Atlantic after 1493. The story of Americans reaching Europe greatly intensifies after 1492, when literally tens of thousands are kidnapped and carried across the Atlantic below the decks of Spanish, Portuguese, and other vessels. Hundreds or perhaps thousands of other travelers above deck as diplomats, curiosites, allies, converts, and entertainers. Considerable attention has been given to the latter categories, while the victims of the captive trade have received far less examination in spite of their much greater numbers and probably significant demographic impacts upon Portugal and Spain in particular. Let's go down here. It is necessary to emphasize that the many thousands of Americans who reached Portugal, Spain, and other European countries must have had a decided genetic impact, since it is clear from the records that they produced descendants. We can document their presence in cities such as Valencia, Sevilla, Lisbon especially, but it is more difficult to know how many were resold to the Baltic and other sections of Europe. I believe that we can be sure that Americans were traded widely in the Mediterranean region, not only in areas possessed at times by Spain, such as southern Italy and locations in North Africa, but also wherever Spanish, Portuguese, Genoese, Tuscan, and Venetian merchants piled their commerce. It would seem especially likely that Americans might have been transshipped to Sicily and Naples during Spanish domination of that region. But since many or all Americans would have been classified as non-Christians, they also might have fallen into the hands of Iberian Jewish and Muslim merchants and become part of the North African, Middle Eastern, Ottoman captive trade, especially during times of relative peace between Portugal and Spain on the one hand, and Muslim and Greek Orthodox regions on the other. The Low Countries, Belgium and the Netherlands, along with other parts of Europe, became associated with Spain during the Habsburg ascendancy. It seems likely that Antwerp might well have become a place where American captives would have been resold, and from whence they might be transferred to other Habsburg domains. Significantly, Antwerp figures in the lives of St. Thomas More, author of Utopia, and other pre-Enlightenment figures. The period from 1493 into the early 1500s will most likely be the period of the heaviest shipments of Americans to Spain. We do not have records of every vessel cargo, but it can be estimated conservatively that up to 800 captives were transported each year from 1494 for about 10 years. The total that we can document is in the range of 4,000 from 1493 through 1503. But the records are very incomplete, and 8,000 is more likely figure. Gradually, the shipment of Caribbean Americans to Spain probably declined due to the great labor needs developed in Haiti and Cuba, and the indigenous population was decimated by disease, exploitation, and slaughter. But we do know that Americans continued to be taken to Spain from the Caribbean region and Mexico all during the 16th century, and especially in the first half of that century. Slave records in Sevilla, Valencia, and the Canary Islands attest to many arrivals from the Caribbean and Mexico in the years through 1600. Nevertheless, we can suppose that even the shipment of alleged Caribs with a C branded on their faces probably declined due to the Caribbean Caribbean internal labor market. On the other hand, the Portuguese expansion in Brazil resulted in a new source of slaves after 1501, not only for Portugal itself, but also for resale elsewhere in Iberia and Europe in general. Also, as noted, slaves from Terra Nova, Newfoundland, were received in 1650, with many being sent to Peru. These Terra Novians, like the Brazilians, came to Spain in Portuguese ships. After 1542, efforts were made by Spain to restrict the enslavement of Americans, except for alleged Caribs and persons from expelled or enemy groups, such as the Mapuches and later Apaches and Yavapayas and other frontier tribes. Some Americans may have been liberated from captivity in Sevilla in 1549, but such persons had to ask for their freedom, and probably mixed-race children would not have been eligible, especially if the mother were African or Muslim. Benzoni tells us in his day, in 1550s, that American captives were being traded in Spain for wine, flour, biscuits, and other merchandise, even including women made pregnant by their Spanish captors. I'm going to stop there. All right, I'm going to stop there. I could read more, but this book is an interesting book by Jack Ford. But I want to go back to the Caribs real quick. I want to show you. All right. Here are your Caribs. Here are your Caribbeans. All right. These were the Caribbean. I know Asiatic people. These are Caribbean. Notice a lot of them wearing turbans, too. And then you can see the pipe. I don't know this picture. You can see the pipe, but you can see a lot of them wearing turbans. These are not no damn African slaves, man. These are indigenous people of this land right here. All right. I'm gonna turn to page 59 of this book. You'll see another image of these Aboriginal black people. Okay, here's the turban. See them wearing the turban, and they having a pipe. All right. You see your grandmother in Arkansas or Mississippi smoking that pipe. These black folks. These Aboriginal black people. These are not no African slaves, man. See them smoking that pipe and that turban in his head. All right. Let's go to page. This page. Here's another. Here's the same image I just seen there. The first image. The turban on their heads, man. These are indigenous blacks. The first blacks were made slaves here, and they shipped a bunch of them over to Europe and to North Africa. All right. But you already had your black people here selling to Europe. All right. Like I said before, brothers and sisters were selling globally. All right. We were selling ships going back and forth. America is not the new world. America is the old world. So brothers and sisters if you look at some of those pictures that I showed before dealing with the black nobility, I've said before in that piece that some of them people look like Aboriginal blacks from America. They might have been. In fact, they were. Because it was a constant movement and selling and trading amongst our people on every landmass that we were at. So this mess that we were brought here as slaves from Africa, some were brought as slaves, but most of our people were already here. We have to hammer this knowledge, man. We have to hammer this knowledge and get to know our true history. And I'm going to continue to hammer this, man, because you're not going to hear this from Pan-Africans. You're going to continue to hear they were brought over here in ships and slaves or some West African empire. Our empires were global. And we sailed on ships, particularly wooden ships, for deep sea sail, brothers and sisters. This is our goddamn history, man. Let's take the damn thing back. Take it all back. All right? Take it all back. I'm going to talk about this more, too, in the future. Peace and love.